Thank you. Our guest host this morning, go back to him, one of the most vocal voices in Washington on many issues, the budget deficit, health care reform. Joining us now, Republican Senator Gregg from New Hampshire, Budget Committee ranking member of the Banking Committee as well. And you already are not running. We know that. This is not new for you. So how long have you been saying what's on your mind? Even more so since you're not running. No or no?
Well, I hope forever. In New Hampshire, you do have a little running room on things like that. People really expect you to be fairly plain,
right.
Say what you're thinking about and not try to be too flamboyant, but simply say it.
Anyone who does this public service and who enters the field of politics, I mean, it's hard enough, and we shouldn't question why you're leaving, but we kind of need you. I mean, don't you think that at this point, what's your excuse? Why are you quitting?
Have you asked Kathy? She's right here.
She's here, and that is.
Been there, done that. I mean, people in New Hampshire have been nice enough to elect me for 30 years.
Crucial right now. These are crucial times.
It is. It is really crucial, especially as we look out 5-10 years, because our debt situation is getting to such a critical mass situation where our capacities to sustain our government and our fiscal policy is really in question as we go forward. So hopefully we can make some change over this next year. I've got some ideas. Working with Ken Conrad, we've got a proposal that I think might really fundamentally change the formula here and get us on the right path. But as a practical matter, at some point you've got to say, you've been there, you've done it, and you want to try something else.
We're going to have Chris Dodd on later. You said you were a little bit surprised at his decision. I guess why? I mean,
well, because he's been so engaged recently.
Yes.
I mean, basically he shepherded the health care bill through the Health Committee after Ted got very sick. And that was a really complicated exercise. And then he went right into shepherding the financial reform package through the Senate. And he's doing it, I think, in a constructive way. He's brought the Republicans in on the committee and his membership, and we're dealing on these very complex issues. I've been asked to work on the derivative side, and I think he's just been very constructive. And of course, he was key on putting together the financial rescue package relative to TARP. And so he's been the player, really, on all these big issues recently.
Then is it fair for people to think that regulatory reform will not get the same focus after this announcement once we see these things?
Well, maybe give some a little running room,
To do things
he might not have otherwise done.
Is that what he's told you to this point?
No, but I can see that. Yeah. And as a practical matter, what we're doing in the Senate isn't what the House did. The House package was really unbelievable in some areas. I mean, the Kanjorski language on basically if you're too big, we're going to break you up. I mean, where does that stop? They're going to break up, Coca-Cola and then Walmart because they simply don't like them because they're large companies. I mean, it's an absurd position. And then you got the Ron Paul language, which we've discussed before here, which essentially puts the Congress in charge of monetary policy, which is just scary.
You had a lot of nerve quoting from his book, trying to pin that on him.
If it's crazy to think that the big banks should never be broken up, how do you protect
them? Well, no, it's not the issue of breaking up big banks. The issue is if a bank is a systemic risk because of its policies and the way it's structured and the things it's done, then there has to be a capacity for that bank to fail. The stockholders lose their money, the bondholders lose their money to the extent that they're not secured. But you don't want a group of members of Congress setting up a committee which is made up of academics and intellectuals that says, oh, we don't like that institution because they're simply too big. They may be profitable, they may be strong, they may be successful, they may actually be adding a lot to our economy because international activity is important, is a function of size in many instances, but we're going to break you up anyway because we're populist and we don't like you.
But who should be making that decision and why?
Nobody should be making that decision. If the bank is solvent and doing a good job.
Then how did we wind up in the position we wound up where all these banks got into so much trouble and needed so much money from the taxpayers? How do we
that's a long story, I think, but if you want to thumbnail it, number one, the Fed kept rates too low too long. Number two, there was a complete breakdown in underwriting standards where you separated the underwriters from the people who were actually responsible for owning the assets, and so people were making loans to people who couldn't pay back. And number three, you simply had a regulatory community where people were shopping for the weakest regulator.
How do we make sure that that doesn't happen again, though? You can do that without this idea that you just get beyond a certain size and you're going to be broken up?
Yes. You make sure what we're going to do here is we're going to have a resolution authority where we essentially have the major players in the regulatory community looking at what the systemic risk institutions are, and if they feel that there's one that's got a problem, that's doing investment structures that are really going to put it at risk and therefore the system at risk, then they can step in and resolve it. And the resolving exercise will not be a conservation exercise. We're not going to keep them alive. We're going to resolve them.
How do Fannie and Freddie fit into that world?
They should be resolved right now. I mean, basically, Fannie and Freddie is the fact that we're keeping them on life support at the cost of billions of dollars, American taxpayers' dollars, is a huge mistake, in my opinion. We should have in plan a game plan for privatizing those institutions and moving those people off the federal books.
You know, back to Chris Dodd, do you think, I mean, the White House was pretty quick to tell Patterson to take a hike, right? I mean, do you think there was any fingerprints here?
Well, you'll have to ask Chris.
Yeah, I know. We don't expect. I'm sure this is his decision. He had a lot of.
I have no idea. I tend to think this was Chris's.
Right, but
he's a pretty strong guy. I don't think he listens to.
They'll probably keep Blumenthal. He's popular. So they'll probably get Blumenthal. He's popular. So you keep that senator, but that doesn't mean they'll keep 60.
I don't know that they'll keep that senator. I mean, look at what's happening in Massachusetts. You've got a real race going on in the most liberal state in this country after Vermont.
Is it really? Do you think it's?
In my opinion, Brown can win that race because of the fact that people are really frustrated and angry. They're frustrated and angry. You know, people say, well, it's the bank bailout or it's the health care plan. That's part of it. But what they're really angry about is they think they're losing America. They think they're losing the tradition of America, which is that one generation always passes on to the next generation a better, stronger, healthier, and more prosperous country. That's changing.
I remember Christie was supposedly, you know, Corzine was going to pull it out, and he was ahead by 5, Corzine at the end, and he still lost by like 10.
It's a good example. New Jersey, of course, is right there with Massachusetts, is a state which has traditionally been an extremely strong bastion of Democratic activity.
Well, okay, so we were talking about this in the chairs, and we'll get, you know, maybe we'll have a chance to talk more, but it's the 19th, weird time for a senatorial election, right, in Massachusetts, January 19th.
Very strange, and you know, they did this because, you know, they took away the power to appoint from Romney because they were afraid that you know, that he might appoint a senator, so they took it away from him, and then Kennedy died, so they had to go into a special session and give the power and create this election structure to get the election on track fast. And it's you know, I mean, they appear to have been hung by unintended consequences.
Yeah, why didn't they think they'd have an appointee who could give them their yes vote? Why didn't they make it February or March or something?
You know, because they
messed up
themselves.
Yeah. Okay. So. Let's say that
sometimes politicians do that.
Let's just say, for argument's sake, that the Republican wins, which is a long shot still. Maybe you don't think so.
Well, I think but it's a shot.
Right.
I mean, it's better than Cincinnati's chances.
Yeah, I know. You know, you should any Jets fan should thank me for making the Jets look like a Super Bowl bounty.
They did look good.
They did. They look like you know, they count on the Bengals.
It was a bad day for the Patriots too.
Yeah, it was a bad day. It was a bad day for the Patriots. All right. So let's say that this weird thing happens and Brown gets elected in Massachusetts. Yeah. How long can they delay the swearing in?
Long enough to pass the health care bill.
They could do that.
Otherwise, they won't be able to pass it.
They could do that.
Absolutely. You know, these guys play hardball politics. This is Chicago politics out there right now, and they're not going to let this thing. They're not going to let the health bill go down because Massachusetts elects a senator because Massachusetts doesn't want the health bill.
I mean, Senator, there was a piece yesterday in, of all places, the New York Times. I think it was Cheryl Gate Stolberg talking about how if it would be bad if the Democrats didn't pass something. They'd really get, you know, that would hurt the party if they don't pass it.
That is the primary reason they're passing something.
But they won't be helped if it does pass. It's going to be, they don't get a commensurate amount of credit when it does pass as how bad it would be if it doesn't pass. So, I mean, this would even add to the idea that this was just rammed through.
That's the politics situation, you're right. But the substance of the situation is that this is a really terrible bill. I mean, the impact on our economy is going to be really devastating. The impact, you're taking the federal government.
Howard Dean doesn't like it. Howard Dean doesn't like it either. Howard Dean hates it. I mean, he's going to come on today and talk about how little is in there.
I agree on that, which is great, but he agrees on a different reason. He wants to have a nationalized system. My problem is that you're exploding the size of government when we can't afford the government we have, and you're taking resources which should have been used, the Medicare cuts here, which are literally trillions of dollars over 20 years, and you're using them to expand a brand new entitlement, which makes no sense at all. If you're going to reduce Medicare spending by that amount, you should use it to make Medicare more solvent because Medicare has a huge insolvency issue, $35 trillion of unfunded liability. So this whole concept of what is being done here, in the end, you know, they're going to be able to claim, well, we're giving health care to these main people, but in the real result is going to be that the government's not going to be affordable.
Colorado voters, they wanted reform, you know, the piece in the New York Times, dying for health care reform. Please give us, and then the actual bill itself, no one wants it.
And that's in the New York Times.
That's in the New York Times. So was the article yesterday.
New York started out in the same boat, and they've changed their mind, too. The leaders in New York government, New York City.
Well, there's a lot of second guessing in Massachusetts right now.
It's going to.
All right. The senator's going to be with us.